Bill Lupfer from the Florida Attractions Association. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Attraction Pros COVID-19 video series. Kind of wish we didn't have to do this, but it's great to see you. And so kind of tell us kind of what's going on in Florida right now.
Yeah, it's a tough time. Obviously this hit at a bad time of year, but there really is no good time of year it could have happened. We were entering into our spring break season, our field trip season, the Easter season, all of that, just a kind of a big, busy 7 or 8 week period of time here in Florida. And of course that's gone. So we've seen all of our members closed and under the governor's orders here. And there's been some good news that's come out of it. We've seen a lot of our members who have been involved in providing online educational resources. And that's kind of one of the things that we wanted to refocus on is what can we do now that we're unable to have our gates open? And that's the conversation that we've been having with our folks over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, I was going to say, what if the members kind of been recommending, or what do the attraction operators want to see in terms of that type of content, or to be able to kind of keep that level of engagement up?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's happened is parents are all of a sudden forced into this kind of a homeschool environment, and although the school systems are continuing to provide educational programming and the textbooks and the virtual classes online, we think that there's still an opportunity for our members to participate in the educational process. We think field trips are extraordinarily relevant and provide opportunities for young people to not just read about a topic, but to experience a topic. And between the natural world and nature and gardens and zoos and aquarium and the historical resources we have here in Florida, we think that there's a great opportunity for us to catalog and then develop research outreach programs to the educational community to provide resources both for the school systems and for parents who may be looking for opportunities for their kids to experience the kinds of things that we provide at our attractions.
Yeah, and I know a lot of those attraction operators are parents themselves, and they're at home with their kids right now too. So, what kind of challenges are they facing in, just kind of doing the things that we're all talking about? We're now thrust into working from home. We've now got kids at home. So, kind of how is the Florida tourism machine working with that challenge?
Well, I've spent quite a bit of time on the phone talking to our members over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and unlike prior conversations that were relatively quiet, there's kids in the background, babies crying, and dogs barking. So it's certainly the dynamic is quite a bit different. But I think a lot of people are feeling the pressure of the uncertainty of where we are right now. If we knew that we were at a peak and we were on a decline and that we had some certainty, we could be working toward that. And I think that the big challenge is right now, we're fighting something, an invisible enemy. We're experiencing a pandemic, which none of us have ever experienced before in our lives. And there is no known timeline. We're experiencing something that has no end, no known end right now. And then the prospect of, well, what does our new reality look like? What does an attraction operation look like and feel like post-pandemic? Our industry is one that's very dependent on the ability for people to engage with each other. It's a very social kind of businesses that we run. And I'm hopeful that we're able to have a solution that will allow us to very quickly begin to bring people together again, because that's the magic of the attractions industry is people. And in the interim, I think our challenge is, well, what do we do with our staff? The most valuable resource we have, the most precious thing that we could ever have as a business is the people that are serving serving our guests. And I've seen some really good things happening with employee engagement, people who've been furloughed, and we want to do more of that. We think that it's one thing to protect your physical assets, your buildings and your rides and your penguins and your flowers, your garden. That's one thing, but it's a whole different thing. How do you protect the human resource, the human asset? And there's not an easy answer to that, particularly being scattered across town and not able to be face to face. But one of the things that we're doing is we've stopped our educational programming via webinar and have begun offering teleconferences, video conferences. We think the face-to-face is very critical during this period of time, and that the ability to see your friends and see your coworkers and see other industry professionals face-to-face, even if it's via video, is an incredible use of technology. And it really is the way that we need to be thinking about this interim period before we're able to see each other again in person.
You know, that's such a great point, Bill, about being able to see each other. And as Josh and I were kind of thinking about how to continue to serve the industry, we wanted to do just that, right? So that's why this turned into a video series rather than just another audio series or an ebook or, you know, a set of blog posts, because we really did want to interact and have these real-time conversations that, you know, really unfortunately fall to the wayside when you're not with everybody, you know, all the time, or you don't have those things coming up that you're planning on that you can work toward. And one of those things, unfortunately, that, you know, we were all working toward was the conference, the Florida Attractions Association conference, which we learned last week, of course. And obviously you work on this year round, but all the rest of us learned last week that it was not going to be happening this year in June. And, you know, hopefully I can speak for Josh. This is a highlight of my year to be able to get together with the FAA family. So I know it must have been in some ways a difficult decision, you know, to make, but also for the safety of everybody, you're probably like, well, of course we can't do it. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your thought process and kind of what went into making that decision to actually cancel the annual conference this year.
Yeah, well, it was both a tough decision and an easy decision all at once. Our conference was scheduled for June 14th, and it became apparent pretty quick that even if this was a relatively quick event, we were able to get the attractions and the industry back up and running pretty quick. The emphasis needed to be on the health of our members. And we didn't want to do anything that would detract or distract them from their success at the businesses. And so we had kind of a busy week canceling a bunch of contracts that we had with a bunch of different people and speakers and the hotel where we were going to meet. But it was the right decision to make, and we continue to stand by our members and want to do what we can do to ensure that they are healthy. And our association is only as strong as our members. And we're going to have some tough days ahead. And inevitably, this is going to be a long road back to full health and recovery and the robustness that we were enjoying up until a few weeks ago. But we're committed to that in the long haul and think that the dynamics are in place. We've got a great industry that provides great opportunities and experiences for people, and we're bringing families together and making memories and bringing joy to the world, and you know, allow a Floridian to brag just a little bit, but think, you know, Florida is particularly well equipped with entertainment and theme park and attraction resources to entertain, inspire, and inform families. And that's what we're ready to do. And so we're just waiting and sort of chomping at the bit, waiting for the opportunity to reopen our doors and provide those kinds of experiences for visitors from all over the world.
Very well said, and we're definitely looking forward to that too. One of the things that we noticed when the announcement was made that the conference was being canceled was that it wasn't looking at, or you weren't looking at postponing it or rescheduling it to later in the year. What was the reason for that, and just canceling it altogether?
Yeah, we want to be very careful and we have a number of things we do around year round. Conference is one of a number of meetings that we host, and we really need to take a look at the rest of the year and how is this going to unwind, and how does it feel and what's appropriate. And I don't think we know right now. And so I think it really is a matter of kind of, week to week and month to month. Where are we? What's appropriate? What can we do to provide service to our members that don't require travel? Things that we can deliver to them in a digital format or an online format, or take to them. And some of the activities we do is actually, we call them regional events, but we do events around the state. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. This is not going to be a typical year. We've got to do business differently, and we've got to kind of tune in to what's appropriate for our folks. Most important thing is we don't want to be a distraction, and we need to be working with our folks to ensure that they are successful and that the businesses are thriving. And anything that's going to cause them to pull away from their business for the next several months at least is inappropriate in my mind. We need to deliver to them where they are, and they need to stay where their businesses are and take care of their people and take care of their attractions, particularly after they reopen, especially after they reopen, and make sure that they're on the road to recovery. And frankly, the economic impact of this is going to be something that will be felt for quite some time. It's not going to be an overnight recovery financially for our folks. There's a long road ahead that we're going to have to go down. But my hope is that a year from now we'll be looking back at this and kind of thinking about what we would have done differently or what we could have done differently. But bottom line, celebrating our industry's recovery from a pandemic and our success together to rebuild our industry and create these memories for our visitors.
Yeah, absolutely. So what should operators really be thinking about right now from the terms of their business, knowing that when we come out of this, you mentioned this a few minutes ago about kind of this new way of doing business, and we know that there's going to be a number of things coming out of this, whether it's consumer confidence and health and sanitation, or coming out of this into a recession where there's economic strain. What are some things that operators can be doing right now from a proactive standpoint to be able to kind of ramp up I would say accelerate the ramp up period to recovery?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to anticipate what the new reality looks like post-pandemic, but it's not too early to begin talking about contingency plans on what that new reality might be. And certainly there's going to be health sanitation issues that are going to be very sensitive, whether real or imagined. All of us will have this hypersensitivity for some period of time just because of what we've gone through. I think motivating our guests is going to be critical, motivating our employees, our staff is going to be critical. They are hopefully coming back. Hopefully these are furloughs, and we want them to feel like they're a part of the solution. I think one of the things that we really need to key in on is listening to them. What are their thoughts and what are their ideas? What is their perception? And you think about it, each one of those employees that we have, although they relate with each other as employees, they also are relating to friends and neighbors and colleagues, and kind of are our eyes and ears in our communities where we live. And I think they can bring a lot of sensitivity on what people are thinking and feeling back to us. Certainly initially, we're going to be marketing to our communities. we're not going to see travelers from overseas and from around the United States coming to our attractions immediately. And we really need to focus on our communities and the people that are in our areas. Certainly celebrating the people who have put their lives on the line in the medical profession and first responders. That's kind of an easy, low-picking fruit there. But these are people who should be celebrated, who are working in the emergency rooms and providing healthcare. And so I think there's kind of two things going on here. I think there's kind of a short term, what do we do day one when we flip the switch? And then second of all is, how are we going to sustain that and grow that? And yeah, I think confidence will come back over time. Don't know how long, don't know how fast. But again, I don't think it's too early to begin having these conversations about what if, and anticipating, what our new realities might look like post pandemic. And I think a lot of that is just exchanging ideas with colleagues. And that's one of the things that the FAA is attempting to do, is just create environments where people can share ideas and converse with each other, and just kind of be aware that the reality in one part of the state may be completely different in another part of the state. And Florida's reality may not be the same as realities in other parts of the country. This is very, very regional oriented, and how we choose to operate, and the sensitivity of which, how we open and when we open and how we communicate, and what are the best practices with social media, being sensitive to the fact that there's been death, and there's been sickness, and there's been pain, and trauma that we've all experienced. And in that reality, how do we, as an industry that is built on a completely different foundation, it's almost the antithesis of what we've been through, how do we make ourselves relevant in a way that's sensitive to what we've been through?
Yeah, Bill, I really appreciate, all the things you just said there in terms of it's not too early to have those conversations, but I'm curious, in the conversations you've had, are there people that are at different points of that process? Are there some people that are still, the wound is open and I can't even think about what it's going to be like to open? And then are there other people that are like, well, okay, we understand what's happening. Now let's move forward. I'm curious where people are on that spectrum.
Yeah, and they're all over the board. We have we have people that are still dealing with the realities that they're closed, and we have others who are kind of beyond that now and are thinking about, well, how do we reopen? How do we phase in opening? How do we phase in staff? How do we ensure that our staffing levels are appropriate to the guest demand? How do we anticipate what the guest demand might be? How do we communicate? How do we communicate that we're open? How much of it is kind of the bright and happy and fun kind of marketing that we're well known for, as opposed to a recognition of what we've been through? And what's the right balance? And I don't think there's a right answer right now. I don't think we know. We're kind of in uncharted territory right now, and there is no. I'm not going to say there's no right answers. There's right answers, and there's probably wrong answers. But right now, I don't think we know what the answers are at all. And I think the wise thing is to begin thinking about what's good, what might work, and what is wrong. What's a direction that we don't want to go, and ensure that our entire teams understand this strategic philosophy that we're talking about. This has got to be something that everyone buys into, that this is how we want to open, and this is the message that we want to portray as we open. It just takes one miscommunication to really mess this up within an organization, to mess it up. And the public is going to be hypersensitive. We use the term tone deaf when we're communicating messages. And there's been a lot of of tone deafness that's gone on through this pandemic. I don't think it's been intentional, by the way. I think it's just it's a new way of thinking. It's not what we say, but it's how what we say will be received. And we have to kind of put ourselves in the minds of our consumers, our guests, our visitors, and where their heads are going to be as we're communicating initially and preparing to reopen.
Yeah, it seemed like there's been, I would say, evolving schools of thought over the last few weeks as far as from a communication of how attractions or how operators should be positioning their messaging. And it seemed like, and I speak from a very like broad standpoint, that at the beginning it was like buy gift cards, book now, come later, support the community and whatnot. And that seems to kind of have evolved to just say, hey, we're thinking about you. I saw a commercial it was just a Las Vegas commercial. I saw it a couple of weeks ago. I don't know why I've only seen it once, because I thought it was the perfect commercial. And it was just the Strip at night with like drone footage going over, maybe a helicopter, whatever it was. And the message just said, when you're ready, we're ready. And it was like, we know that you're not thinking about booking a trip to Las Vegas right now, but when you do, we'll be here ready to serve you. And it wasn't even, it didn't get down to the messaging of like, this is how clean we're keeping our casinos and our hotels. It was just like, just know that, you're top of mind for us.
Yeah.
And I think that has been a really important, and I would say very effective way to be able to communicate a message without it being kind of promotional or overload of information that we've been getting of policy.
Well, I love that kind of sensitivity, and that really is I think the appropriate message right now for all of us is we're part of our community. We miss you. We support you, and a lot of our attractions are doing some great things with donations and with volunteerism. I think the other thing that's really important to remember is that the attractions industry is really a very small part of a very large industry we call tourism and travel. And it's not just the attractions, but think about our suppliers, the people who are selling goods and services to our industry. And think about the people who sell our tickets online and ticket resellers and people that are promoting our businesses. And think about our destination marketing organizations, and think about our state tourism organizations, and think about the U.S. Travel Association and Travel Industry Association. And you think about the industry worldwide and how this pandemic has affected everyone. And one thing we have to be very careful of is that we don't become myopic, that this is a situation that has affected my business and only my business.
Right.
This has been something that's affected the world. And we need that same sensitivity, not just to our guests, but to the people who are serving the attractions industry, as industry suppliers, as people who are providing goods and services to the industry. But we're all in this together. And, we need to work on this and provide that same degree of sensitivity that we would provide to, our hopefully to our staff, to our employees, to our team, that same degree to our vendors and people who are serving and will be working to bring businesses back to us, as well as help us be better operators once we're reopened again. So it's big, it's huge, and I think being myopic is not wise right now.
Yeah, very, very well said, Bill. And you kind of encapsulated a lot of that by saying, we're all in this together. And this is something, unique where we're all experiencing it. Like you said, all the suppliers and the manufacturers and, the operators, we're all experiencing this in some way, shape, or form. So I appreciate that message. As we kind of wind down here, are there any last final thoughts that you'd have for the industry or for anybody who's listening that can help us kind of give us some hope as we travel on?
Well, I'm the eternal optimist. So you probably are asking the wrong guy, because sometimes I gotta be pulled back to reality myself. When I first heard this about a month ago, And I remember the time and the place and actually the event, which I prefer not to share right now. Um, that that it that it first dawned on me, this is real. This is not a good situation. And I think a lot of us for the last, couple of months, and in the back of our head, we've been kind of hearing this thing and something's going on in China, and wow, that's really too bad. And but really, there was all of us had that kind of point in time where it was like, this is real. This is not going to be good. Um, but I'm also hoping that we also can all enjoy a point in time where we have the realization where, you know what, it's going to be okay. And we have a dynamic industry. Travel is so critical to the well-being of our souls. And no one does a better job than the attractions industry at creating a sense of joy and hope. We talk about what the new reality will be like, and social distancing, all that kind of stuff. Um, you know, my hope and my dream is that that's not the case. That we are something that enjoys experiencing things together, and that in short order, with the technology and the science and the amazing uh, medical research that's going on right now all over the world, that this will be something that can be contained and ultimately defeated, and that we'll be able to once again enjoy a reality that's not too dissimilar from the reality we left behind just a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. I really appreciate hearing that perspective, and we share your optimism with you. So you are certainly not alone in that. While we're all trying to take a very realistic approach, and we have to make sure that we don't lose sight of the optimism of being able to get through this and being able to have these shared experiences together. Once again, hopefully in the near future. So, Bill, thank you so much for joining us on this video series, and stay healthy, stay safe.
Josh, Matt, thank you very much. Same to you all. We'll see you soon, I hope.
See you soon.